Hey, how's it going?
What is this giant bird I'm hearing about now?
Big bird.
Yesterday, I hear the dog barking across the lake. I go outside, and he's caught it like a giant bird all the way across the lake. And so he's barking, he's like holding him down. And he's turning and he's looking at me as he's barking, like, hey, look what I caught. And I'm like, let the bird go.
What kind of dog do you have?
German short-haired pointer.
Yep.
He's
okay.
Very much a bird dog. So.
Okay, I was going to say, because if you had like a Chihuahua or something, that'd be even more amusing.
You would think this is the dumbest dog you've ever seen until you play chess with him and you figure it out. He's actually way smarter than you are.
That's the problem, is he's actually smarter.
I know.
Right?
He's got me figured out.
I mean, you wouldn't believe the things he can do. It's unbelievable watching him work you.
Well, hey, introduce yourself. Tell us what you do at Praxent and let everybody know who you are.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristiane Mandraki. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at Praxent. Praxent's a 22-year-old experience design and development firm for financial services companies. So that's banking, wealth management, lending, insurance, FinTech as well. My role specifically is really about taking the time to understand the problems that our clients are kind of facing and seeing how we could help them with those problems. They tend to be things like, I don't know, they're struggling with their sales and their competitors have got much better digital experiences, or they're having people fall out of some kind of funnel and they don't know why. And so they need help kind of optimizing those, things like that. So my role is really just there to sort of help them and figure out how we can get rid of those pain points and make them better.
Let me give you a compliment. I'll tell you what, the first day I met her, me and Tanner have talked about you so many times about you're like the Jeff Harper kind of people, that you're a great business person. You take the time to listen. You make the extra little touches and the outreaches and the responsiveness that other people need to make them feel good about doing business with you. And I just wanted to take my hat off to you.
Oh, Dave, that is so kind. I really appreciate that.
You're special, and we like your company a lot.
Run into you guys all the time, obviously. I think we've got a ton of mutual customers.
Yep.
A gazillion,
Well,
right?
we send a lot over that way because they're so good.
Well, it's also it's something that's near and dear to us, but you guys have a really good reputation for being good people. We all know, especially, I mean, we're in the business, the software business of money, right? What could be more devious? We could have more bad actors. It just sounds bad. Right?
That's why we're regular.
And I mean, look, I think our industry has its fair share of bad actors. And when you run into people that just everywhere you turn and look, everybody has good things to say about them, it's worthy of note. So we appreciate you guys.
It's hard to do.
Oh, we appreciate that. That's our mission at the end of the day, actually. Technically, our mission is to build trusting relationships with the people that we serve. And it's how we grow as a company. So it is important to us. And I think it fits in very well with FedFiz and community banking as a whole. It's the whole goal of everybody in that industry's business. So I very much appreciate that. Thank you.
There's a lot going on that the bankers are doing, so a lot of times you say, hey, look, I've got this mobile offering from Jack Henry or from Fiserv or whoever it may be, and I want to do something different. I need to grow my core deposits, and they come up with clever ideas for direct banks, like Redneck Bank, we've talked about 100 times, it's such a great idea. Fields fallow, we bring in the deposits and we use those to fill loans, funnel and fund the loans. Just really smart things that bankers come up with, but they need a different interface for that. So it doesn't look like their regular old bank, right? Or their same interface that they're using all the time. Then you get the FinTech guy. Actually know for a fact, we had Obsidian on here a couple of weeks ago. And you guys are working with them, helping them build their interface and connect all the neat pieces that go along with that.
And there's a lot of that. I mean, you guys talk about a vote of confidence, right? A ton of people that actually build software for banks, that you build the software for them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you think about, not just built a lot of software ourselves around here, so we know how hard it is. We screwed a bunch up as well, notably me. But the hardest part, look, once you get your architecture in order, that's always the thing that bites you, and we know that. But for me, the hardest part outside of that is the experience, the user journey, right? The UI, and especially the UX. That part is tough. And I think whenever you sit down to design those things, you always miss something. That's why I'm a big fan of data, right? So we can go back and see where we screwed up and fix it. But I think you guys have a ton of experience there. And I mean, if you just think about the scale, you guys working with the companies that you work with and all of the customers that they have and their customers, you've got a heck of a purview that I don't think a lot of companies have.
Okay. Have you had this many compliments in one day in your whole life?
No, I don't think so. This is great. This is the best meeting of the day now.
Yes.
No, but you're right. It is, I think by specializing in financial services, it does mean it's a very insular industry. And so the learnings that we get from one project gets translated into the next project that we do. And so it's always growing in that way. And I think specifically in terms of like working with the fintechs, there's they have the most competition in some ways because there are multiple vendors doing similar things. And at the end of the day, the one that wins is the one that serves the bank or credit union the best. And so it comes down to like who's got the best conversion rates and who's got the best engagement levels and things like that. And I think one thing that is interesting that I think is often missed is the way in which things are implemented can have a huge impact on those things. Because there's other parts to it as well. Like if you're looking at account opening, I think I guess there's a bit of a difference between whether you're looking at things as like system-centered design or human-centered design. System-centered design, I would say, is like we have this vendor for account opening and we have this vendor for loan origination and we have this vendor for digital banking. But the reality is from the customer's perspective is I want to open a checking account or whatever it might be. And like that goes straight from your website all the way through your account opening experience and then all the way also into your digital banking experience. It's part of the onboarding as well, right? And I think by putting the user first, that's where these companies can do really well. And so when it comes to the implementations and how you can get those like really, really good conversion rates and all of that, I think you have to look beyond just your one single vendor and look at the whole holistic experience. I think that's actually what has the most impact.
I'll give you a great one. Little account opening trivia for you guys.
Trivia.
So you almost always.
Is this like choose A, B, C?
Well, look, back to me screwing stuff up. So done this project a few times, built some account opening products. And what we always found in the analytics is that you want to get the email captures the first step, or at least very early in your workflow. So because when you lose them, you got a way to get them back. Right? So little stuff like that. And I'll tell you guys, I see a ton on the fintech side of, I don't want to be hard and say bonehead mistakes, but lack of experience style mistakes that the rest of us, once you've done it enough, there's some best practices that you know you want to follow. And then there's some areas that are greenfield where you want to innovate and go play in. And I just cannot stress enough the value of being able to have that perspective and see it across a large use case.
So Kristiane, are there companies that you guys like to work with or augment what you do?
Yeah, well, do you mean in terms of like types of banks and credit unions and fintechs that we like to work with or something else?
Technology partners in particular.
Okay, yeah. So we've built relationships with a number of technology partners. And in many cases, we're kind of brought on as their recommended front-end people, for want of a better word. I don't love the term front-end people. There's a bit more to it, but
I'm one of those people that recommend you as front-end people. Sorry.
That's fine. I'll let you off, Tanner. So yeah, in many cases, they're brought in that way. And so what it might be when it comes to configuring, Constellation is one of those examples, actually. So Constellation is a digital banking product, and their experience is wildly configurable. You can do an awful lot with that and make it a really, really custom and unique experience. One of the challenges of that in some cases is some banks and credit unions don't have the team in-house. They don't have a team of UX experts because they're not technology companies at the end of the day. And so they don't really necessarily need them. Some of them do, and they want to be more technology forward, and that's fine. But in many cases, they're kind of then missing that skill set to be able to configure those types of products in a really good way. One of the benefits of flexible products is they're flexible, but one of the cons is they're very flexible and you can kind of tie yourself in a knot pretty quickly. So for example, with Constellation, we actually helped to design their demo experience. So we designed the front end and configured it in a way that is really pleasing and really for them. They have a lot of different fintech, they call them tiles, but fintech like products and services that they can enable you to use within their experience. And so we did a lot of work there just in the UI to really improve how easy it is how much people will engage with those things. Things like, it's always the little things, I think, like the way in which you would name something. And it's the same systems versus human-centered thing. Quite often they'll use the name of the fintech to describe like whatever it might be, like FIS bill pay or something like that.
Right.
And to the end user, they have no idea what is FIS, and that's not the point, right? So it's little things like that we can kind of do to come in and configure those. That's on the banking side. We've got a number of partnerships in the wealth side as well, like building on top of digital custodians to build like robo-advisor, mobile apps, things like that. Something which is very quickly moving into the banking space as well, though. I think there's a lot of interest from... no, carry on.
You help some of the banks with like RPA and things like that?
In some cases, yes. In general, it's more to do with gaining new accounts. But the highest use case that we found for people where they need us is really where it can like hit revenue very hard. And that's in terms of like opening new accounts or new loans, improving those types of conversion rates. There's some elements of like improving the engagement, but generally the biggest impact that they see from really putting a user-centric perspective, it tends to be in new account openings.
Do you guys code this from A to Z, or do you guys have little plugins or pieces that you use along the way?
Great question. It depends, I think, is the answer. For example, it massively depends on the vendors and the companies that you have in, and honestly, just how much the bank or credit union wants to have custom technology. There's a lot you can do with off-the-shelf products. There really is, just in the configuration of it. And you can add in a little bit of custom code here and there, some CSS that can make things pop. And in many cases, that's what we're doing. But generally, like we try to avoid that, because I think when you start adding on custom code onto other products, if the bank or the credit union doesn't have a team in-house that can maintain and manage that, because when that vendor all of a sudden like does an update, all of a sudden your thing breaks, and that's not what we want.
That's why I asked the question. I want the people watching to understand, these are the pitfalls. These are the cool things you can do. Sometimes you save a little money, but you cost yourself more in the long run. And there's a smart way to do things. And sometimes it's like, well, maybe we're just not ready yet. If you don't have the budget set aside to do something like this and take it on, don't try to hobnob it along the way, right? And to your point, there's certain situations where it actually does make sense. It depends on what their staffing levels are. One of the things that we talk to a lot of bankers about is, and I mean, oh boy, a lot, is the idea that for us to launch a direct bank, or us to become a BaaS bank, or all these other things, they listen to the narratives that are out there, and they believe the fact that we're going to spend millions of dollars. We're going to have to put all of this staff in place that we don't have currently. And so maybe I should just wait. And, and it's like, hold on now. If you're a $5 billion bank, that might be the best way to go. But if you're a little bitty bank or $300 million bank, actually a $300 million bank that we had on a couple of weeks ago, that turned into, I think, a $900 million bank just sold. Mm-hmm. Got the word this morning to a FinTech, which we didn't lose a charter, which is a great thing. They started out with next to nothing and were able to get a good FinTech BaaS program going. So it's not a big barrier to entry in all cases. And I love what you were saying, because you really kind of laid that out, that it depends on what you want to do. How big are you? What do you want? How big you want to play, and what technical expertise do you need to have? There is not, this is what I'm saying to the bankers, everybody listen, there is not an answer to this question that fits everybody. It just depends on where you are in your process and how easy you want to get in. Are there easy on-ramps? Of course there are. Are there expertise levels that are at the top of the mark? You're talking to it right here.
I think as well, there's three types of businesses, right? There's, you can either be a customer intimacy model. You can, and so you're like really understanding your customers and they come first, like Praxent, for example, is that customer intimacy model. And I probably would make a guess that FedFizz is as well. And then you have the other ones, which are like product or technology focused. So you want to have the best features and functionality that you can possibly have, and you are competing based on that. And then on the last side, you have the operational companies. And I think quite a lot probably of banks and credit unions fit into this. Like, you are really good on compliance and managing people's money in a really safe and secure way. And there's three types. And so I think when you're looking at your strategy, you have to look realistically as to like, which one of those do you want to be? And I think when it comes to like the concept of creating a digital bank, that works very well if you want to be in that second or first category of like user centric or technology centric, and especially that second one. You need to have the resources around you though. Your organizational structure, the people that are in your company need to like match that. You need a lot, like really robust engineering expertise if you want to do something like that, to really lead with it. But I think
not really wanting to go all in on this thing, don't do it with a bunch of dumb people around you. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think
we did that.
Yeah, we watched that.
Yeah.
I think with community banks, one of those really important things that I think about them, community banks and credit unions, is they serve people in a really strong customer intimacy model way. They are the people who, like neobanks and digital banks, SoFi's of the world, they can serve people on volume and scale. But when it comes to like nuanced financial situations that individuals have, they're not going to be able to, they're never going to be able to serve those people. I was watching one of your podcasts the other week with, I forgot the name of them, but they were the Native American bank in Oklahoma. And he was speaking about there was this, I think it was a charter school, and they'd had some, the government had given them some money, and they would only pay it back in like a rebate form. And so they had the money there, but they didn't have any money to spend.
Well, they did pay attention. Yeah.
A neobank is never going to be able to serve them. They are never going to do it because it's such a nuanced, like one-to-one thing. And community banks really have the strength there. And so I think there are ways that you can really lean into that. And I don't think a digital bank has to mean scale. I think there are things that you can do to really specialize yourself. And I do think specialization is important. And I don't think on a demographic scale that is the key. I don't, at this point in time, I think geography-based niches and those sort of like age type like niches, those are not probably going to be the strongest strategies anymore. Okay. I think the ones that will work is meeting people based on their unmet needs. And so
great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell you another story, right?
I'm laughing so hard at she just blew the lid off of on the three, right?
I'm voting her for president.
Community banks would totally see themselves as the intimacy model, right? But what we've actually seen, and I think to your example of neobanks and just the fintech space, they've used data, lots and lots of data. Let's just talk about targeted marketing for a second to really make that a hell of a question mark, right? How intimate was that relationship when they're actually meeting customers where their needs are because they're doing a better job of digital marketing, right? Ugh. So now you got some thinking,
not every
am I a
Native
product?
American lives on a reservation,
right? Am I a product company? Am I a technology company? And so we're actually seeing banks that would argue with you all three, right? Any call I have, any given hour, right? I could pick you a bank that would argue any of the three, okay, so which is really interesting.
So we were at this party, and first thing Tanner walks up to a guy and says, "How much money do you make?" No, I'm kidding. He doesn't do that. But you see how inappropriate that would be, right? All right. It was a joke. He didn't do that.
Hey,
I was just making that
point
up.
taken. I get it. Yeah.
But that's what it is in banking, is how much money I have. Maybe not all of it, maybe not every aggregate piece of what I have, but you know what I have in that account, that's for sure. That kind of makes me feel a little illy, All righty.
Well, some trust comes with that.
That's it. And that's the part everybody misses here, is on the one-on-one relationship with a chartered institution is never going to go away. There was a guy, Josh Rowland, lead bank. Bankers win in this game. They are profitable, or they wouldn't be here. They'll lose their charter. They're not like fintechs where they can go at a deficit and forever, right? So this whole idea is really cool. And all of a sudden, the fintechs come in, and what you guys are talking about is so cool. Y'all need to get together more often, that's for sure.
We like this stuff.
Yeah, but the idea that it's no longer a geography when every single thing about getting a charter or keeping a charter is based on geography. Yet the market now, and it's because of this and computers and everything else and telephones and hey guys, we're everywhere. Everybody's everywhere now. And so if you said, look, I'm looking for people over 4 foot tall, less than 5 foot tall that have, orange hair and spikes coming out of their head or something. Okay. You'll find them.
That's not me.
They're all over the damn place, but they're not all in one spot anymore. And so when you can serve that customer niche across the United States or even the world and serve their needs in a way to where they feel this personal relationship that Praxent brings to the table of saying, hey, we customize putting these things in front of these people so that they feel it. That's a gigantic advantage. Now, when bankers talk about, hey, I need to grow core deposits, man, there's a damn good way to do it, folks. There's a great way to grow alternative ways that have nothing to, and we're not talking about attacking your customers at your bank. We're talking about everybody but those people. That's who you get this whole new market that comes in from working as a BaaS
It's
bank.
redefining community.
It is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you think? You want to be president of the whole world?
Agreed. Yeah.
You can be.
Yeah, you don't even want to be president of FedFist.
Nah,
Yeah.
no, I'm out.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think the interesting thing is I think banks and credit unions need to remember that customer intimacy model and just translate that to their digital experiences. Stop seeing it as like this fintech and this fintech and this fintech and trying to serve everybody. I think trying to serve everybody with a little bit of everything online, you're just going to lead to that sort of exhaustive mediocrity.
Yeah.
Figure out who you want to be really good for, because there is so much you can do with off-the-shelf products. There really is. They're very flexible. And so like, if you want to be the best motorbike lender or house refurbishment bank or whatever those things might be.
We had one we looked at today
Hold on.
that was private airplane loans.
Yeah, that was
a great
Okay,
example.
I got to
There you go. See, like,
What would you call, we call them motorcycles. What'd you just call that?
what a motorbike?
Motorbike.
Motorbike.
A motorbike.
Okay.
Got my new word
All right.
today.
Okay, but look, this is great. So I don't know why nobody talks this way. It's brilliant. Look, there are so many people, and I think it comes from the thought leadership in banking, right? Trying to look, if you want to be Mr. or Mrs. Thought Leader, you need to come out with the most widely impressive blanket statement, right?
New buzzword.
Yeah, with a new buzzword. And it has to be first and innovative. But because of that, everybody wants to speak to the large audience. And so you get these blanket statements, and we all know, I think we've been talking about niches, right? One size does not fit all.
Super app.
That's where I was heading, man. The super app concept is such a mess. I mean, everybody forgets this, but we've been doing this for well over 20 years now, if you include online banking. We've been in a feature fight in digital for like 25 freaking years, y'all. Like, we're so far past this being a joke. And I'm telling you, if you look at the analytics in any digital banking product, 80% of the stuff, like reordering checks, and you talk to a bank and they're like, we got to have that. We don't want to give anything up. And I'm like, you had 6 of those in the last decade. Right? I mean, come on, man. It's not even one a year. Okay. But to Kristiane's point, you've got these specific journeys, like zillions. We could sit down right now and come up with 100 that are not needs that are not met. And so I think the concept, and we talked about this morning too, the concept of I need to be an all-inclusive place that provides access, right, to my customers versus I want to go out and meet my customers where the needs are, because I am intimate and know my customers. And also because I believe I'm delivering access to credit at a local level. I'm delivering my charter, trust, et cetera. So that operational model that you mentioned.
Yeah,
I think those two that's the best pieces
really
to
good.
put into a digital strategy and deliver.
Now he's the new president.
I'm sorry.
That was really good.
I'm really
good.
upset with the super app thing right now.
Hey man, we have a lot of bank boards on some of this discovery stuff and things like that. And that was what we were working on, was like a little bit of a prep call. They gave us 127 pages of stuff to look at and, just basically dissect it, tear it apart. But they had a really cool idea though of, it was a dual strategy of, we're going to go out and meet our customers, our geographic customers. We're going to them, ITMs, ATM, you name it, man. It was really cool. I mean, micro branches, really neat stuff. And then they have this other side where they want to go where the other guys are. And I mean, I guarantee you, your name was on that list.
I love it.
The
Journeys. I love the micro journeys and the niches and meeting customers where their needs are. right? I think to your point, if I was a banker, to his point of calling you guys, I'd call you up and be like, how quick can you build me a dozen different journeys, right? I want 50 different apps for different experiences.
How fun is it playing on your phone on one app all day? Right?
I know. And I mean, look, if you look at your customer base, back to your point of demographics,
Fantasy football be over.
the concept that I'm going to give every customer at my bank the same app, why are we not laughing out loud right now? What a joke. I mean, come on, And so I just think we've been thinking about it all wrong. So thanks, sorry for our little rant there, but you clearly you hit a nerve for us, right? You're thinking the right way, and it's not something we're hearing. We're starting to hear more from bankers, and that's positive.
Well, we're jazzed up about this, man. And that's why we're so damn excited to talk to you, because you guys are the tip of the spear on this. And the best I know. And again, too, I want to say this one more time as a super compliment, that you take the time, man. I mean, guys like Auto Books do the same thing. They take the time to talk and listen, not just, oh yeah, we got the answer. That always scares the hell out of me when somebody's got the answer and I ain't done telling you what the damn question is, right? You guys take the time to work it through, figure it out, and deliver something where every time the other end of the phone that I hear that's worked with you is like, wow, this is
great.
Way better than what we expected. All right, that's what you're saying the banker should do, right?
Yeah. Well, take a little bit of time. Tell us a little bit. You mentioned implementation and all that. What is scoping? I mean, you get a call from a technology company, Banker X, whoever. They've got some tough project. They need your expertise.
What's step one?
Yeah. Where do you start? How do you scope something? How do you work them through the process?
Sure. So,
Great question.
let's come up with a scenario, shall we? So you have do you know what? Let's just pick one of our previous clients, because it'll be way easier for me than doing this on the fly. So one of our clients was Mary West Credit Union, and they came to us with, they had just implemented Terrafina, the NCR's accounting experience. They came to us and they wanted to improve the conversion rate. So that's like the high level thing. So what we do is a 3-part process. So the first call, I'm really just trying to understand, like, just download information, like what do you have, and trying to get those details of like, what are the technology products that you're using? Who are your team? How does this problem impact your revenue and your business? And really get a sense of like, why now? That's always one of my favorite questions, is why now? Like, why are you doing this now and not like 6 months ago? And generally what you find out is there's something substantial that's happened at that point. I think in this case,
a board member called. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think in this case, what had happened was they had implemented it, and it had been, I guess it was probably like they're 2 or 3 months in or something like that, and they had expectations for their conversion rate, and it wasn't where they wanted it to be. They had all of this analytics. Banks and credit unions are amazing marketing teams, just to say that, like amazing marketing teams.
Nobody else would say that. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Such like in-depth. I think that's the thing though, is they have great marketing teams, but I don't think you can expect a marketing person to also be a UX designer. Like, it's just they're 2 different skill sets, right? And so they had all these analytics as to like where the problem was, or like where the problems were, where people were dropping off, but they didn't know why. When they're looking at these pages, they're like, there's something wrong with the page, but I don't know what it is. And so the next step for us is like, okay, so I need to see like, what's the scope of this project? So there's, at some point, I know that we're going to do a redesign of this experience. And there's a couple of things that we need to figure out so that we can inform the redesign, because redesigns aren't really just, we send in a UX designer with like expertise and they just come in and do it like off the gut. Like, that's not how it works. There's no UX stands for user experience, right? There's no UX without speaking to users. It's a really important portion. Sorry.
I want to make sure I'm following you here. So you're telling the folks that you go in and you find out, what are you trying to get accomplished? What went wrong in your expectations? And then we'll figure out why it went wrong way before we start coming in with here's how you fix it. Is that basically it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So the next step is we're generally trying to do a deep dive. So we want to walk through this experience and have them tell us like what's been going on, because there's so much nuance to like, There's usually a team of like 8 people who have been involved in implementing this. And there's a reason behind some of those decisions. Like, no, compliance.
I'm guessing they all agree.
Ask 8
every
questions.
time. Yeah, they always agree, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's my favorite bit when you end up in conversations is the disagreements. But there's always a reason for why it's like that, because you also can't discount it. It's not a case of like, oh, Praxent's coming in and they just want to completely redesign this. Like, screw you, compliance. Like, we don't care about that. Like, because that's not reality. It's not going to end up working, right? So we need to understand that. And from there, our team goes away and we put together a proposal. So generally, the types of things we're trying to understand in those meetings are what is unknown. And so in this case, we put together a 3-part engagement. So the first part was a UX audit. So a UX audit is basically we go in, we send a designer, there's 10 usability heuristics. And a heuristic just means like a law. In this case, a UX heuristic means like a law, something you shouldn't break. Like a user should always know in a product where they are within the workflow, something like that, right? Are you in step 1 or step 10? There's 10 of those, and they're much more in depth than that. There's the designers spend a lot of time learning those, but we're going through it and finding violations. So we're picking out every single time, like, hey, it could be something like the contrast, like you put yellow here and the text is in white, and so people can't read it. Like, it could be silly little things like that are causing friction. So the first thing we found out from Mary West was there's friction in this and we don't know why. So the first thing we wanted to do was like, let's go find the friction.
You're basically grading the experience piece by
exactly. And it's not based on, I think sometimes design, there's a thought that it may be based on, I like this design, I don't like this design. Like, I think it should be purple, but like, that's really not what UX is. It's semi-scientific, to be honest. There's reasons, there's flows, there's expectations that users have. There's a lot that our team goes into, like studying to keep up with best practices and things like that.
Behavior of not knowing, maybe I'm an inch from the end zone, but I thought it was another 45 minutes, so I quit. Right.
You know? Yeah, exactly. Things like that are huge. And in many cases, it's like silly little things, actually. Like somebody has clicked into like, I don't know, like maybe they're clicking into to connect their bank account with Plaid. And they clicked it, but you haven't provided, and they didn't really know what it was they clicked on. And you just missed adding a little like exit module, like a little X button, so that they could get out of it, but they couldn't get out of it. So now they've just canceled and given up. So like little things like that, you'd be surprised how much they can have an impact on conversion, because it's like 10, 20, 30, 40% in many cases, something like that. So that's step 1. So we go and identify the friction.
10, 20, 30, 40% of the cancellations are over minute details. Generally,
yeah. Those types of things. There was that specific one with the Plaid and the X was from a previous client that we found.
Yeah, that's great. Man.
It's substantial, and that engagement is a week. It's really quick. And then the next step was, okay, so we know where the friction is. We have a hunch based on like UX best practices why it is, but there's some stuff that's a bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say fluffy, but it's a bit more human than that. It's a bit more specific than that. So it might be a case of like, let's say you're looking at your, on the website, you have your different like landing pages, or there's a product comparison, like which checking account do you want to have, that type of stuff. Things that you can't find out from a UX audit, what it is that you're not telling people, because that can only tell you where you're adding friction. The UX audit can only tell you where you're adding friction. It can't tell you where you're not like meeting their needs.
Right.
And so
I love this concept in data, because for us, people ask me, do you have a data point? I'm like, no, but I have everything else. And what I don't have on that is the answer to your question. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
So that's where user research comes in. So in this case, and it doesn't take, like, I think a lot of people expect that you have to do user research with like 100 people or something like that. It's literally like 5 to 10. 5 to 10 people will get you 80% of the UX discoveries that you need. After that, you're just hearing the same thing over and over again, usually. And at that point, at least iterate.
Take an expert and give that information, different story. But yeah.
Do you do any of this like discovery UX grading concept as a service? Mm-hmm. Or is this all part of just how you work through an engagement?
Oh, no.
that
This
separately?
is like one of the services. So like in this case, when Mary West came to us, we took all of their information in and we're gathering it. And so we understand what the problem is. And so in this case, the issues were, we knew where some of the friction must be, but we didn't know why it was there. And so there's two ways of looking at that. Like one, how is friction just entered into the workflow? And then two, how is the design and the experience not meeting people's needs, which is why they're leaving. So the answers to those two problems is one, the UX audit for friction, and two, user research for the unmet needs. And in the research, we found that people weren't being shown the promotions that they wanted to. And in some cases, they had selected a product and they'd gone halfway through the flow, and then they decided, actually, I want this other one, but they couldn't go back to change the product. And so they were like, oh, I'm not doing it all over again. Like, this is pointless. Yeah. So it's those types of things that you could only get by speaking to users. And so once we have all of those things, we put together what we would call our like, okay, so now we understand these things. What are the principles that are going to be input into the design? And so then when we get into doing wireframes, those things are informing the design. So design is much more than just our best guess or recommendation, or like, we've just done this a bunch of times. There is that to it. Like, there is, hey, we've done this with like 5 different credit unions, and every single time nobody understands what you mean by like become a member. There are things like that appear over and over and over again. And from there, we can make that best case like guesses. But there's always unique things that you were going to find out about your specific users, especially if you're like serving them in slightly different ways. Like the more niche you get, the more those things become important. And so we go into the design. And then in this case, we redesigned their website and reconfigured their Terrafina experience. So that's an example of like how we would scope.
I didn't know we were doing a case study.
Wait. I gotta get to the end of the story.
This is so cool.
This is the greatest story I've heard all day. So when you get to the end, did you guys correct and get the user experience and the engagement level up to where their expectations were initially?
Yeah. So okay, so I heard down the grapevine that their conversion rate was like 300% more than what some of the other banks and credit unions had been experiencing. So that's a very big answer, but it's because I haven't had the approval to share the exact number that I heard. I do know that, so in terms of like clicks and things, what previously was taking like 10, 11 clicks just to get into the Terrafina experience, we managed to cut that down to 2 clicks. So things like that just have huge impacts on how quickly people can get to where they want to be, really. So it was a great project, and we are continuing with more work with them. So that's always a good side of. And they referred us to someone as well, actually. So to do this exact same thing.
So where they fell apart, trying to meet a particular expectation, you guys came in, did all this stuff with all your cool science, redid all of it, and then like far exceed what their initial expectations that they had blown.
Great.
You blew that out of the market. This is pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what. We should hang out with her one night and talk about surveys and statistics and what the difference is between a survey and a statistic.
I love it.
Somebody that's got human behavior and patterns down of what, turns people on to the point of a color.
Oh yeah.
That's a great
We can pick apart some survey data. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, we've got a beer drinking night in our future somewhere.
Here's how you ask the question.
Right, but we have to invite our director of design, because if I know anything, it's only because I'm mostly just regurgitating what he's already told me. He is just a wizard. So we'll have to bring him.
With Tim over there, known you guys.
Tim is so nice. He's the nicest guy in the world, except for you.
Yep.
He is.
Final thoughts. I know we did our case study, which was super cool. Like, look, I know I'm the design and fintech nerd anyway, but that was so fun because
I'm blown away.
I've been on the project side of this, either leading the relationship with the institution or working with the product team and building. And basically, I've had to do what you just described was the right way to do, and I've done it the wrong way. So this was fun for me. But final thoughts, I always like to ask, what did we not ask you? What did we not talk about? What should we all be talking about, right? Anything you want. I always say it could be NASCAR.
Motorbikes. We could talk about motorbikes.
Anything at all. But what's on your mind? What's going on out there? What did we not touch on that we all should be thinking about?
I think one thing that's really interesting is inflation, actually. It's talked about literally everywhere, and there's so much like panic, I think. And there's this funny thing with, I remember the first credit union conference that I went to like a couple of years back now. It was Nakuso. And I remember hearing this topic, and I remember sitting there just like wildly confused, where there was this conversation that was around how do we serve millennials because they don't have any money. When it came to like wealth management, they don't have any money, but they're going to. They don't have any right now. And so like we really want to focus on like the people who actually have money. I think this like millennials and Gen Z, I think are very financially savvy. And it's really important to them. There's that horrible statistic, I think, around like, I think it must be Gen X. And like very few of them having like retirement savings to be able to retire comfortably. And I think millennials and Gen Z are hearing that and are very concerned naturally. I think there's hunger in Gen Z for banks and credit unions to support them more in wealth management. And I think investing experiences, and there's ways to do it. There's ways to sort of serve on the mass where you can still maintain your financial advisors focusing on your wealthier clients. Things like Robo is a huge benefit to that. Like you can start serving them, but I think there's definitely an opportunity for those types of unique services. And where inflation is coming into it, more people are even more like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, should I put it in the stock market? Should I take it out of the stock market? Should I put it in gold? Should I put it in lithium? Like, where should I put my money? I have no idea right now. And I think there's a huge opportunity for banks and credit unions to help.
Same conversation this morning again on, so, we're big fans of Unify Money and a bunch of them I like, but I think to everything we talked about today in digital experiences, wealth management is the most broken, junky old thing I've ever seen, right? And you talk about boring. Oh my goodness, right? Like come hang out with me and we'll hop on TD Ameritrade this evening, right? And we'll do some research for the opening bell tomorrow. You're not going to have fun with me. Like I'm a finance nerd, The average person.
Our fees are really low.
Give me something that's a simpler, cleaner, cooler experience and allow me to play with things like, hey, maybe crypto is not everybody's favorite and maybe it's
maybe it's a bad thing today.
But alternative assets as a concept, crypto is a good asset. One that Unify talks a lot about is on the, like collectibles, like baseball cards or, artwork or wine. But, wealth needs work.
That's a great one because when you talk about your high worth clients, art is one of the things that they run to during a time of inflation.
Yep.
So again, to expand these services you're talking about, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was good.
So she's president again?
Yeah, you're president.
Okay.
Hey, we had a blast with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was super, honestly, I was super nervous coming on. I thought you guys were going to ask me a bunch of questions that I had no idea about, but it was good.
Man, we look at this and we've always thought we know so many sharp people and being able to make the rounds and just hear everybody's different perspective. If you take it as a whole, you can really get a good viewpoint and you have a very unique one. So we appreciate you. All right.
Okay. Count us as your super fans.
We'll see you next time.
Speak soon. Bye, guys.
Take care.
See ya.